Hey everybody, welcome to Manifest with the Chakras. Thank you guys so much for joining us. My name is Supriya Prasad. I'm here with Safrianna Lughna of Living Luna, and we're gonna have such a great show today, guys, because we're gonna be talking about the lower chakras and how that works with your body and everywhere else in your life, including your business, your career, your relationships and everything else. So Safrianna here is the queer spirit guide. She's dedicated to co-creating collective healing. And she's the CEO of Living Luna, and she leads from a place of choosing to uplift others in the world rather than judge and condemn. And she's committed to ethical and sustainable practices that honors people, animals, and the planet. Safrianna empowers and visionary leaders, healers, and creatives to embrace self-love, authentic embodiment. Her goal is to unite and heal the world as one person and one community at a time. And as an advocate for justice and open communication, she provides education on the LGBTQIA+ community and polyamorous communities to create awareness. She's the best-selling author, Starseed, and super nerd. She passionately explores spirituality, multidimensionality, and wellness in all she does. Please help me welcome Safrianna here. Safrianna, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much, Supriya. It's always a pleasure to have conversations with you. We've been connected for years now, and it's great to be on your podcast.
Yes, we have been connected for a while. Now, and yeah, is there anything I missed? Anything that you want to also share as well?
Oh, just emphasizing the multidimensional aspects. I am a multi-person, multi-dimensional, multi-passionate, multi-creative. I am a very eclectic person, and so there's a long laundry list of things about me because I just come from a long line of exploring lots of different aspects of life. So I think you shared the big ones.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably we are born maybe 2 days apart. I think I'm June 11th and you're June 9th. I want to say
I'm the 6th. Yes.
6th.
So
okay,
what,
yes,
5
6.
days.
Yes, we're 5 days apart. Which I want to say that makes you a manifesting generator in human design.
Yep.
Yes, and that explains the whole multidimensionality, because in human design, we're often like Dory in Finding Nemo, here, oh, here. We're kind of we're very much like that. We're very passionate about multiple things. And I'm passionate about things like marketing and things like branding and things like all of that. But I'm also very passionate about spirituality, about healing, and about all of that, which is why I combine a lot of the stuff. And I still do and I'm probably going to get some people here on LinkedIn too that say oh, you don't do marketing anymore. And I'm like, yeah, I do, but I don't do it like that anymore.
Right. Ever changing.
It's very much ever changing. So I understand that whole aspect of wanting to be being passionate about multiple things. And I know you're so passionate about the LGBTQIA+ community too, as well. And you have I'm very passionate about those issues and equality and standing up for rights, for the equal rights of all people who've been dismarginalized. Gosh, I appreciate that so much about you. So today we are diving into the lower chakras today. So the lower chakras, which are the root, sacral, and solar plexus. I do want to dive a little bit more into the root and sacral chakras more. Root is Muladhara, is the root chakra. And you know, some of you watching this may or may not know that there is a huge history behind the chakras as well. From the Vedic text to the Upanishads to all of those other texts too, where the root is kind of like, well, it's really in the pelvic region, and you know, and I always say sacral is also the womb, but I also think those two are very much combined. I mean, all the chakras, as we said, are like really intertwined
Yeah.
with each other.
Well, and my instructor that I did breathwork training with, she talks about the root and the sacral as the dantian. So literally this terminology that we have for the overlap between the two of them. So yeah, they're like they're
Yeah.
super intertwined down there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And how I always interpret it as the root is actually like that's your center. That's really your center. And even though the heart chakra is literally the center, and it's so funny because if you watched my other podcast episode with Nitya Gopal Das, highly recommend it because he is amazing. He's a priest. He's a life coach, but he also does priesthood in the Hindu temple. It was so cool having that conversation with him. He talks about the heart chakra and how that's literally the center of your soul. And that's the center of your body. And it's literally the absolute center of everything. However, I also think root chakra is the foundation. It's the foundation of everything. And it's the foundation of it's your stability. It's your, you know, your core, your center, and what you build upon. What are you building upon on top of that? So if that is rocked in any part of your aspect in life, whether that's your relationships, whether that's your, you know, your business, your career, whether that's, you know, your home, literally your home could be falling apart as well. If that is rocked, if that part is rocked, there's not a whole lot that you can do to, you know, fix the other chakras in your body until that part is fixed too.
Yeah.
So do you want to speak upon that and how you would interpret that and how you would heal that?
Yeah, you know what comes to mind for me is in pranayama, breath work,
Mhm.
how we use the root lock to help seal the energy into the body. And so, you know, as you were talking about that, I was just picturing when we're pulling energy through the chakra system, we're you know, pulling down from the crown. If we have an open root, it's just going to flood right out. We can't hold on to it. And so it's important that we have this root that can really lock it down and hold our safety, hold our energy for us. Or again, it's just like there's no bowl there to hold the energy that's pouring in. And so I've had a lot of experiences of working with the lower chakras, and because of lack of safety and foundations in my own life, I had to build them back up. I had to recreate that sense of safety for myself. I had to do a lot of grounding and centering practices within myself in order to begin to repair that. And you know, since we're talking about this dantian area, the root and the sacral kind of together down there, as you were saying, Supriya, if like the foundations are rocky, everything else is going to not be able to have that health and alignment. So when we go up into the sacral being this sensual expressive center of our creation, if the foundation isn't there of safety, we're not going to feel safe to express that creative fire. You know, it's water energy, but it's also fire energy to me because it's the energy of creativity. We won't be able to express that fully. So really that healing work of solidifying the root, getting it to be able to seal and hold our energy in is so essential. And I think that there's I could talk for hours, I'm sure, about different techniques to heal it, but how do we ground center and get into that lock where we're like, I get to contain my energy for me, I get to be rooted, grounded, safe, supported, etc. You know?
Yeah. Oh my God, absolutely. Like when we get grounded and we get like so, you know, when we get into that center, and I mean, yeah, like one of the ways that I know that I've discovered that I really, really love is somatic movement especially through our hips and through our thighs and
Yep.
through that pelvic area, like to our, works through our sacral and to our root. That has been such a game changer for me in the last maybe year, like less than a year now I've been working on it. And it's been such a game changer, especially when you learn to rock your body out of dysregulation.
Yeah. Somatic work is tremendous. As a prior trauma therapist, I worked a lot with somatic movement with clients, and you're absolutely right. Like the hips, I mean, that is where these lower chakras are in physicality, and they can hold and store so much pain, so much tension, so much stress. And even the most micro movements of just rocking the hips and sway side to side and forward and back, or to escalate that, I love this concept of twerking as a sacred practice.
I love it too. I love it. No, like that's so good. Like twerking is like amazing. Like honestly, like any sort of movement with dance, I mean, popping, the booty popping, like even like that, I like any sort of like movement around the area. Like a lot of people don't know, you're like actually shaking when you're shaking your butt, when you're shaking your booty, when you're shaking your ass, like anything like that, like but you feel good afterwards. Like that's the thing, you feel so good afterwards, and it's because you're shaking out that movement. You're literally shaking off all of that negative energy that's around that area. So yeah, like and by the way, dancing is also one of my favorite forms of movement. Same. Especially when it deals with your lower chakras at all. And it's such a freeing way to really express yourself. And it's so funny, like when we bring it back to the inner child, and I talk about inner child work a lot in my own work too, and I know you do too, shadow work and inner child work. The main thing is like incorporating play into playing like a child. Like how would you play as a child? I used to dance a lot as a child. So like
I danced and climbed trees.
Yeah, like I danced a lot. I played a lot. I ran around the grass. There's like a ton of things I did as a child that, incorporating that sort of play into our adult lives is so important. And when we talk, I mean, I just literally wrote a post about, energy as currency, right? And using energy as currency. And how did we feel as a child to know that our energy was currency? We didn't. We just acted in our movement, right? We just acted in our movement. We just acted. If something didn't feel right to us, something, we just went away. We didn't know, right? As a kid. And, our whole bodies as a kid, we just danced. We played around, we ran around in our backyard. As a kid in the 90s, that's what I did. I ran around my backyard. I didn't know what I was doing. I ran around in my backyard barefoot a lot of times.
Yeah, same.
A lot of times. I was barefoot. Like I didn't know like any better. Like that's the thing. Like you ran around barefoot all the time as a kid, especially during not so much the winter, because I grew up in Michigan.
I grew up in New York, and you'd be surprised how many times I was out in way less clothes than I probably should have been.
I mean, yeah, seriously, I'm so glad I'm in Atlanta right now. I keep telling everybody that I'm so glad I'm in Atlanta right now, because I can't, that whole Chicago weather, I can't do the -3 degrees for a high anymore out there. But during the summer, yeah, I remember in the 90s, there was I would say in the late 90s there was internet, but in the mid 90s there was hardly any sort of, there were computers around, but there was hardly.
Yeah, we grew up in very different times from the current modern teen and child, and And I think that is, it's been easier for some of us to connect back to these lower chakras and literally the root, because we had that experience growing up. And I can imagine it's a lot more challenging for younger people now to have that connection, because they may have never really had that experience of getting grounded first. For me, I was like plucked up and away from nature. It felt like I've written about this in several of the books I've been in, like this concept of being that free for all, the child on full display, out running and climbing trees and looking at the flowers and connecting with the animals. And then they were like, nope, you're going to public school and you've got to get good grades and you've got to do your homework and you got to do this. And it was like, I had that experience of being rooted, and it's like I was uprooted. And so as an adult, that's been the process for me, is coming back and getting rooted again, finding my safety. In fact, even over these last few days, I've been writing a lot about like putting down roots, like really putting down roots again. Oh, I've landed in this place. I can really put roots down now. Because I think that's something many, many of us are lacking, is this feeling that we can even put roots down. And so how's that impacting our root chakra, right? It's like, I'm not safe. I'm not safe. I can't ground. And so I think that it's super important that we remember we can, anytime, anywhere, we can connect in, we can, lock up that root lock. We can let the energy settle in there. We can find safety in our bodies and come into more ease. But it's a challenge for many of us when we've literally been uprooted from who we were.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I know I can tell you, like, there were times where, I mean, I moved around a lot when I was a kid. Like, I used to live in Michigan. Yeah, we lived in Grand Blanc, but then we lived in Source Creek, and then we lived in Flint, Michigan. Like, I think we moved in 3 different areas. And
Wow.
yeah, but then we moved to Wisconsin. When I was like 12 years old, I went to Wisconsin. I mean, and that was hard for me. And I literally had to leave like all of my friends and people that I knew in Michigan that I grew up with since I was like 2 years old, and I don't even count the times I actually used to live. I can't remember. I remember if I told you this, but I did live in Maryland when
Yes,
I was.
I remember that.
Yeah, Hagerstown, but I actually don't count that time, Hagerstown, Maryland, because like even though there's a when I turned 1, there's actually a home video of me when I turned 1, and that's where we were. We were in Hagerstown at that time. So, but I don't even count that because I don't remember that at all. But we came to Michigan when I was like 1.5, 2 years old. And we lived in Grand Blanc, and then we lived in Source Creek, and then we finally lived in Flint, and then we moved around to Wisconsin. But that messed with my root chakra like so much, simply because my stability wasn't there. Like all of that stuff, I had to redo like all of these things like over and over and over again.
Yep.
But I think that really shaped me, though. That really shaped me into being able to adapt like super quick as a child. So, and that was the thing, adapting and changing who I was, and not who I was, but adapting and changing environments and being able to make friends quickly. I felt that that rebuilding of the root, and really the sacral, and really the solar plexus, and we're also getting into the solar plexus now, because there's a bit of self-worth and confidence that comes in there when it comes to moving, and when it comes to switching schools and things like that, not knowing where you fit in. So
I went through very similar, because I was in New York, and then Maryland, and then back to New York, and then back to Maryland, and then to Tennessee, and then back to Maryland, like all over the place. So I really resonate with that being a disruptor to the root. And then, yes, like the going up into the solar plexus, like if we're constantly having to change and be adaptable, like, yes, that's a strength, but it can also disrupt that energy source for us, because we're constantly having to chameleon or morph or change, or put resources out there to redefine ourselves. And so that's where we get back into, we really want to find this alignment and heal from the root up so that we can step into our authentic identities and make room for us to shine our solar light forward in a way that doesn't keep draining and depleting us. And that can be so disrupted when we're bouncing all over the place like that.
Oh yeah. Like, I mean, and that's the thing, being star seeds, being like ourselves. And I would consider myself an indigo star seed. Pretty sure you're one too. I'm not sure. I don't want to say anything, but like, looks like you're an indigo star seed just like me. And an indigo star seeds, like, gosh, we're born sensitive. We're born like that. We're born super sensitive. We're born from all of these, with all of these gifts, and we're born with all of these different abilities. And that's the thing, when you're put into these circumstances, like as a kid, you don't understand it. And your body gets used to being a certain way after a while. And I don't want to get into it here, but there were a lot of other aspects of my life that happened to me that weren't really pleasant to go through as well. But the point of the matter is that kind of changed, I don't want to say my chakras, but it kind of changed the energy of those chakras, if that makes sense, into feeling this is what's normal.
Right.
For the chakras. This is what's normal.
Yeah.
And it's so funny, at like 30 some odd years old, I am looking into these chakras and I'm like, and actually doing somatic movement, doing all this stuff, doing like all these different movements and realizing, oh my gosh, this is what it looks like when it's dysregulated. When you're dysregulated.
Yeah. I mean, trauma has an impact on the brain, and we know that from like actual science, right? Again, coming from the psychology background, and me leaving the psychology field and going into more of the energetics was this understanding of like, okay, if we know it's having an impact on the brain, doctors know it has an impact on the body, but we try and pass it off as just like, go take meds, right? What's it doing to our energy field? And so the chakras answer that, right? When we see them out of whack and out of balance and pulling, like literally, like desperately leeching energy wherever it can. That lack of alignment, it comes from trauma. It comes from getting knocked out of our nature because of unhealthy nurture. And it's something that we shouldn't experience shame around, but we do because we were told to,
Right.
and then we have to learn to rebalance this and get this, and that's, it's not what we want to have to do, because we don't wish those bad things happened in the first place, of course, but it is this journey ultimately back to alignment.
Yeah, journey back to alignment. I love that, because we don't get out of alignment, we get into disalignment, or we do get out of alignment, but we have to remember that our chakras are already in alignment. It was in alignment, and we have to remember. Right?
Yes, remembering who we are, remembering all of that. It's an ongoing journey for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And getting like when we talk about the root, we go into the sacral and balancing the ego and the divine feminine, and that's what I always call what the sacral is. And for women, it's womb energy, and for men, like men, they do have like similar energy. It's sacral is also similar energy. It's sensual energy. It's like all of that energy right there. But for women, I like to call it creatrix, because we create from the womb, right? So, and we get that, and when we get so dysregulated in our womb, we often have our masculine side come out a little bit more than our feminine side as well. And you talk to a lot of polarity teachers, and you talk to a lot of like people, and I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of polarity coaches out there, because there's a lot of, I would like to say, misogyny in that space. I'm just going to say for what it is, misogyny.
Right.
But yeah, because there's a lot of people like that like to call themselves traditional in those spaces.
Right. And I mean, I'm over here like the queer spirit guide, so I'm all about finding your unique balance of
Yes,
energy. Like there exist extremes and none of us should be fully on any extreme.
exactly.
That's never balanced, right?
Exactly. Like it's fine. It's all about finding your balance. Now, however, what I do like about what that is that it's finding your own version of what femininity looks like to you, and what finding your own version of masculine, and then finding that whole balance. It's not one way or another. It's what you find that, and in the polarity, it's finding how you put that into how what type of balance does that look like for you and your partner, which is what I always liked about it.
Right.
And
Or your many partners, because like me, I'm
yes.
polyamorous and I have more than
Oh
one.
yeah,
So then it's like, the polarity falls apart at that point too, because
yes,
every single
exactly.
connection has its own attraction in it. Like, and that's for family and friendship and all of that. Like every single dynamic has its own thing. So I think it's kind of a little extreme to be like, this one relationship is how I'm going to define my entire energy field because I need to
Right.
balance them, right? I know you and I are very much on the same page there.
Oh yeah, like I mean, honestly, like it's not, yeah, you're right. It's not like this one relationship, because there's a lot of people, who are poly and who, have like all of these like different relationships with other people, but like it's, you know, you get to define that. Like that's the thing. Like you get to define how it is, how it's supposed to be, how you are supposed to be working it for you, and like not like, and this is where like some of these coaches, like they lose me like at the part where it's like it's one defined moment and you have only supposed to have one sacred love and one sacred, I truly believe we do have multiple soulmates in a lifetime. Sometimes we can be with more than one soulmate at the same time and it's really how you want to intertwine with that. So, which is what I did, and this is what leads me to your book, Bumblebees and White Balloons, which is such a great segue, right? I love it.
Yes, polyamory is a minor subplot, but it's
Yeah.
there because I believe in representation. But yes, this project's super special to me. So I'm so glad we get to talk about it today.
Yeah, I absolutely loved the book. There were so many moments. I know I saw a review. I can't remember who wrote it, and I'm definitely going to write a review on your page too, on your Amazon link page, because somebody wrote it and it said it was so perfect because she said that there was a lot of moments where I laughed, a lot of moments where I cried, and just a lot of moments where I just sat back and thought about how like this person and how I felt. And that's how I felt during this book. Like I was just like, there was a lot of moments where I laughed. There was just a lot of moments where I cried. And I'm like, there was so many moments where I really just sat back and thought, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this person like went through so much in this book. Like I felt for your character. I felt for this character so much in that, and like the way that, and I really don't want to spoil anything here, but there was trauma. I would say, let's just say that there was trauma in the book.
Yes.
And
it doesn't pull punches. It's not about skirting around the things that make us feel, for sure.
Yeah, like I just I was so I felt for the characters so much. I felt for all the characters, really. I felt for the characters, and I felt for Abby as well. I was like, oh my god. I was so enthralled with the whole plot. And like both of the characters are LGBTQ, and there are some people in this book too that are, that you have relationships, friendships with, that are I want to say straight, I want to say.
Yes, there are a few characters. There's an asexual character. There's the lesbian lead who's polyamorous. There's a queer trans lead. There is the queer trans lead is also black.
Yes.
The other asexual character is black. And then there is a straight white man and a bisexual white woman who's polyamorous. So it's kind of like, this book really, I'm glad it was my debut novel because I've written a lot of nonfiction already, but this is it's semi-autobiographical. So Abby's story is based off of my own story in life.
Mhm.
So Abby is kind of me and a character. But the overarching idea of the book is this diversity, this real lived experiences of people that we might never talk about. And that's been something. So there is a spoiler that's very, very much like on the book cover, and I like to warn people with it because it's a main
Yeah.
plot device, which is pregnancy loss, and that was my experience of
Yeah.
pregnancy loss was what went into this. And so speaking to the lower chakras, like this book was
Yes.
very much about healing my womb space and getting safe and secure in my own decisions to not have kids moving forward. Like this book became my child in a way, and the characters in it really reflect many of the issues of life that people just are like, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to talk about it. And so they literally crumble their ability to be in relationship with these lower chakras because they're avoiding their own feel it to heal it, right? Be able to
Mhm.
stay rooted in who you are and the experiences you've lived and find safety again. And I've been very, very proud that many people have messaged me and said, like, your book made me realize how I was intersecting with this population, or how I showed up in this prior relationship, or how other people have been impacted by pregnancy loss. And so it's planted some seeds of healing for people as they realize, like, lots of people do go through these unfortunate and painful things, and we can find healing in it. We can find resolution. We can find peace. And so that was ultimately the point of the book. And I'm glad that many people have been able to receive that from it.
Oh my God. Like it was so, I mean, just the way, like, sorry, I mean, I know it's kind of a spoiler, but like the way you talk about it in the book, I was just, I mean, I was like taken aback. I really was. I was taken aback by the whole thing. I mean, I never I mean, thankfully I never had anything like that, but there's millions of women who have had pregnancy loss, who have gone through that, who have also, yeah, they have lost children during birth or even after birth or even like all that. And like, so there is like a lot of that womb space, and like that womb space and that sacral chakra is like very much, I don't want to say shattered because like it's energy, it can't be shattered, but it's affected. I would say affected very much. So, and I know how much of an effect it had on me and how healing that must have been on you. And I know that you mentioned that it was also healing for other people as well. There were some seeds of healing as well. And the way that we talk about, you know, healing the sacral and then going through something like pregnancy loss and going through something like that with a partner and how that really affects people. And that's something that's really talked about so much in this book about how it affected other people.
Yeah.
And do you believe that affects, do you believe that the sacral affects your partner's sacral too?
Oh, absolutely. It's really interesting. I know this is a slight segue, but I was reading something the other night, and it was talking about how in our society, and I'm going to generalize here for a moment, unfortunately, our men have not been nurtured well to explore their emotions, right? They have been, in fact, nurtured to shut them down and to not express them, to not share them, to shut down their voices and therefore their emotional responses, unless it's anger or unless it is with their female counterpart, in which case, and this is, little, this was very like, whoa, big feelings about this. But many men are taught to literally take their feelings out or in a woman. Literally, the act of, intercourse is their way to offload their feelings. And this is something that we see in this psychology field as well, that men feel like they can only let down and let their feelings out in bed. And so let's talk about sacral energy, right? If that's our sexual connection and we have partnerships, and this could be, I was generalizing there with men for a moment, but if we're connecting sexually and we are literally giving each other our bad energy through that, right? Our out of alignment energy, what's that doing to our partner when we're literally connecting in this way and getting a feedback loop going between this energy? What is that doing? I think it's highly disruptive if our sacral is out of balance and we are connecting with others in that way, because it's literally this loop, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely, when we physically connect with another person, and whether it's a kiss or intercourse or whatever you have with you, you are giving, oh gosh, at the risk of sounding like purity culture here, of getting purity culture, because there is that ideology on there too. But you're really giving that sacral to the other person. And as spiritual people, as somebody that like takes on, if you take on an energy of another person, you're taking on their emotions and their traumas.
Yep.
If you aren't, and here's the thing, if you aren't regularly clearing the energy and pushing that out and putting like that back, there's a really big chance that you could be taking on somebody else's crap. Right. And not to say that it's not to say that won't happen. It's not to say that won't happen with a hug from somebody else otherwise. Like it could happen like in a hug.
Just being with other people, right? Like we're constantly impacting one another, and that's something that my book, the work I do in the world, the speeches I give, like it's all about the impact we ultimately have on one another if we don't work to do our own internal healing. If I've done no internal healing, I'm going to run around and either bully people or I'm going to perpetuate their patterns of bullying by becoming their victim. And that's not good for either of us, right? So, and obviously being a bully isn't good for us or anyone else. So we don't want these very out of alignment patterns. We want to step back into our full alignment and give a positive impact out into the world.
Oh, that's such a good point, because when we don't heal our own bullshit, is what I like to call it. When we don't heal our own bullshit, like we tend to spread it. We tend to spread it, and then we tend to cause misery. But guess what? Misery loves company. Misery loves company. We like a lot of people that I had to get away from a while back. I just learned that they like to spread their misery. They like to project. They like to do all that stuff. But then, you know what? They try to get other people to be miserable with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they say healing is best when taken alone, when you're alone. And which is true. Like, I mean, yeah, can you heal when you're with other people? Absolutely, but they also have to be on that frequency.
They have to be, yes, because if we're in a situation, and oh my gosh, like I saw this so much in therapy work with clients, was they'd come in, they want to make a change, they want to live a better life, but they were unwilling to leave the relationships or family circumstances which perpetuated the cycle. And so no matter how much work they put in, they couldn't escape going right back into the fire. And so Yes, boundaries are a big part of all of this. And that's going back to the chakras, like our energy boundaries, our energy field, our chakras. They shouldn't be taking from others or giving too much to others. They should be in balance of give and take, give and receive, and not overpowering or diminishing like our power in order to make room for others. It really is this like ongoing balancing act. And that takes us getting balanced within ourselves first, hands down.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. It takes us getting balanced. It takes us like balancing our whole like bodies and seeing like, okay, like maybe, maybe I should give myself like a hug or like the 10 seconds a day. Or it could also be like, let's do a bath tonight. Or, or if you're like me, just doing it all at once, which is what I do anyways. I like to do it all at once. I do the somatic healing. I do all of that stuff. I let myself sleep in if I need to, because this is also something that nobody really tells you about healing is that, once you're out of dysregulation, you're going to be a lot more tired. You're going to be so tired. And allowing myself to sleep in and actually just be a night owl in general, because that's just
preaching to the choir here. I wrote something about like not conforming to other people's patterns, but finding our own rhythms, right? Like some of us are early risers and some of us are night birds, and there's no shame in that until society is like, no, there's only one way to do things. And there's not. There's 8.1 billion ways to do things, because that's how many people we're at right now.
Oh yeah, there's so many ways to there's so many ways to heal yourself, whether it's, doing the root chakra pose in yoga, which if you don't know, that's actually just putting your feet on the ground and lowering yourself it's actually just doing a deep squat. That's all
like
it is.
Extra wide squat.
Yeah, a deep squat to like where your butt is almost touching the ground. But it's not. It's I don't know how like my thighs aren't that strong yet, so I can't exactly do it. But that's actually also known as the root chakra pose in yoga, and there is another name for it. It's been a while since
those yoga poses. There's so many of them, so many names.
There is there is so many names, and that pose is like, it's so powerful if you know how to do it. It's so powerful if you know how to do it. I mean, there's so much movement you can do, so much. I mean, I know that there's a lot of people that like to do the gym. I used to be a gym rat, and I still very much am a gym rat. Not lately though, because I've been doing somatic movement and I've been sleeping and I've been healing and all that stuff. But I still very much will go to the gym, lift weights and do all that stuff and walk around and and just do the elliptical, all that stuff, which is all great. That's all great to do, because whatever you can to move your energy around. However, at the same time, I also realized that I was picking up on people's energies at the gym.
Yeah.
And like, that's not a good thing to do when you're healing, when you're trying to heal yourself, and like when you're doing all this stuff, and when you're healing yourself and when you're going out there, like you're picking up on other people's energy and you're not doing anything to you're doing the thing that you're trying to get away from. And that was the thing that I had to realize, that I came to the realization of. I'm like, I'm picking up energy at the gym and I'm walking around and I'm doing like all of this stuff. But then I realized I'm picking up all this other energy, which I didn't mean to do. So, like, you know what I mean? So I'm like, yeah, whenever you're trying to do, but like, I do think that healing needs to take place on your own. And especially when it comes to your lower chakras and when it comes to all this stuff. And this all flows, by the way, this all flows into your business too. It all flows. Like, and a lot of my clients would also say, like, I can't, I'm not sure why I'm not making money here, and I'm not sure why I'm not making money there. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. When I'm looking at your chakras right now, yeah, your root is here, but your sacral is also not aligned. Not aligned in the correct way. Which, by the way, in your business, your sacral chakra is a lot about how creative your offer is, and then how well it stands out. So if it's
Big important energy right there, because
yeah,
I mean
but
the market is full of lots of different offers.
but then you know what? I also find that whenever that sacral in the business is a little bit off, it usually kind of goes back into their bodies and what's happening with their masculine energy versus their feminine, and how are they balancing it out. And 9 times out of 10, it's usually a woman that I see this in. Like there's more masculine energy in a woman than feminine. And you're supposed to have both. You are supposed to have both, but there's supposed to be a balance.
Well, and most of society is out of balance, tipped all
Yeah.
the way towards the masculine favor, because that's the action, right? The do,
Yes,
produce,
exactly.
produce. And all of us are meant to have action and do things and produce some things, but not 24/7, not all the time. And that's where there's so much burnout in society for men
Oh
and
my
women and non-binary folks at this point, because it's just constant push to
Oh yeah.
show up and be there and do things all the time.
Yeah.
So we need to come back into our bodies and slow down and assess, what feels safe and secure to me, and what allows me to actually creatively express myself, and what actually allows me to be in my identity, my truth of who I am.
And there's this, and I know you talked about a little bit about like constantly doing. And as millennials, we're always constantly told, like, if we do more, we will get more
Right.
as a millennial, right?
And
I
it's so not
know.
true. False information that we were given, outdated information that we were
Oh my
given.
God. Yeah. Like I could go into the whole Rockefeller scheme, the whole
Right.
Rockefeller thing, and like, yeah, how Rockefeller was put into our schools and all of that, and how we're all based off of Henry Ford's. It's all based off of Henry Ford's model, capitalistic model from the 5 days a week. Don't. I'm not going to go there right now.
Yeah,
But
there's a lot to unpack with all of the layers that we as individuals are now unpacking and trying to peel ourselves out from underneath, because it's just been, we've been constantly bombarded by it. And so that's like my main message is like, be kind and gentle to yourself, because you are unpacking installations in your energy. I've literally had installations from society energetically in my spiritual field, covering my chakras from being able to fully function, because there was so much fear and oppression around me. And so it's just layers of unpacking and unpacking and unpacking, and it's an ever moving journey. So we just have to be gentle and like accept within ourselves that it's going to be ongoing. We're
oh
not
yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, acceptance. That's such a huge word. Like accepting what we're doing, loving ourselves every step of the way too. And going into like the Manipura, which is the solar plexus, knowing that we're worthy, knowing that we have all of that confidence in the world to, say, hey, I can take on the world today and I can do this, no matter what that person said to me the other day, no matter what that person or whoever said that I couldn't do this, or sometimes I'll go live and do all these mini readings on my live, and somebody will say like, you're moving your arm in your pendulum. You're not supposed to move your arm. I'm like, dude, I'm not moving my arm. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, or somebody did say like, Jesus will repent you by one of my lines the other day, which was...
Look, I'm like bros with Jesus, and he ain't judging.
Yeah, I know. Like, that's the thing. I'm like, I actually talk to Jesus. Like, that's the thing. Like,
He's
a lot
not
of people don't know.
judgmental the way you are, friends on the internet.
I
Oh
know.
man.
I have talked to, listen, I've talked to Lakshmi, I've talked to Baba, I have talked to Shiva, I've talked to Aphrodite. You know what I mean? I've talked to Jesus too. Like, I mean, that's the thing. I channel like all these people, and I'm like, man, Jesus hates like he doesn't hate, but he really doesn't like what some of you guys are
He is
doing.
very upset at the way that we have, as a human species, interpreted his teachings.
Yeah.
Yes, he would like a do-over. Oh.
Yeah, I'm just like, really, like I'm like he doesn't like that you're doing that right now. You know what I mean? I mean, like, listen, they are all cool people. Like, that's the thing. Like, that's the thing. People don't know, like, these guys, like, the message around here is to really love. When it says love thy neighbor in like the Bible, and there's similar words are said in Hindu and a lot of Hindu scriptures too. Love the peasant, love the, you know, love all that stuff. That's what you're supposed to be doing. That is what that is literally what you're supposed to be doing. And when we're talking about 5D and all of that stuff and going into that, you know, going into that world, and I could get onto another hour-long conversation about the 5D New Earth thing as well, because when Dolores Cannon says it's going to be a much more peaceful, it's not that we're going to be, you know, all war or whatever is going to stop or whatever. It's a consciousness. It's a conscious feeling of what we're going to be doing up there, and it's more of trading and all that stuff that's going to be happening and into the future. And there's some people that are going to go for it, and then there's some people that aren't going to be for it. And that's just what it's going to be, and in the future. So, like, that's the thing. Like, that's the thing. And I did not think the conversation was going to go like that way, but it had to go here. But when we're talking about like worthiness and being ourselves and being, you know, confident in ourselves and who we are, slowing down. And just with, I love that you mentioned that, slowing down, you know, having 5, 10, 15 minutes to yourself every single day is so important. Especially if you're a spiritual being. Especially if you're a spiritual being.
Which I believe we all are. It's just that some of us aren't quite in alignment to access it right now, probably because, again, these lower chakras are out of balance. All of the hatred in the world comes from fear. That's all it is. It's just a perpetual cycle of trauma and generational wounds that we then install into us. And if we get stuck in that, we're going to just spit hatred and vitriol at others because we don't feel safe.
Yeah.
So that is where, you know, I hope that we just continue to spread this message of working on that inner safety, that inner peace, so that we don't project this stuff out into the world.
Exactly. Inner safety and inner peace. And fear lies. Like, whenever our lower chakras get blocked, it's because we have fear. Fear of money, fear of safety, fear of, you know, being our true selves with the sacral, fear of being our true selves and not feeling worthy. There is also lack, and if there's a blockage, that means there's a lack of something. Lack of self-esteem, lack of revenue streams, lack of like safety within our womb, you know.
Right.
All of that stuff. Like trust is a huge one with the sacral. Trust. There's a lack of trust, and if you have a lack of trust, and if you have like so much fear around, you know, having all of these things around things like money. Money's a great example for like the root chakra.
Yeah.
If you have a lot of fear around either gaining money or having success or all of that stuff, I'm like, well, how can you move forward in your business? How can you move forward in your business and all that stuff when you have so much fear around that?
Mm-hmm.
And going and doing all that shadow work, is huge for that whole area. And doing that shadow work, doing like all of that deep inner work, which it does take a special person to do, because not everybody's ready for it, and not everybody is not ready to face their own mirror, is what I like to call it. Not ready to face their own mirror. And but once you do it though, once you face your own stuff and face your own mirror, like that is when the real work starts, and that is when you can actually free yourself from those chains. And that is when you really can, what I like to call, manifest through the chakras, which, you know, and you can, and, you know, and I always say you can manifest even when your chakras are blocked. It's really the mindset you have around what you can have. But there's only so much you can manifest before you have to do healing work around whatever. Because, you know, you can manifest $100, $3,000, whatever, around there. But if you want to manifest a $20,000 or whatever, there is like a lot of mindset work around that. A lot of like, you know, and so, for some people, it's not even 20,000. It could be $200,000 per month that they want to manifest, whatever. It's whatever that they have. It's just, there's a certain fear, whatever it is, there's a fear that they have around money, that they would need to get over, and they would need to work their way over. And when we get over like that whole fear of money, and, you know, where that fear of money came from, because normally it's around our childhoods, and normally it's around our parents, our caregivers, talking about how much money that they have or how much money they don't have in their accounts. Usually it comes from there. And it's embedded in us. And then we grow up thinking, I have to save this much money because I don't know when I'm going to eat next, or, you know, all of that stuff. And then, and this is what my dad did, unconsciously or consciously, or my parents, they both actually did this. They used to give me so much food. Like they used to overstuff me with food. A, because I was such a skinny kid. And B, it was literally because they were kind of taught this, because in India, and when the time that they were living in, they were poor, like they were poor-ish. My mom was poorish, but they used to give food thinking that might have been the last time that they were going to eat. So that is where, and even my dad does this to this day, where he would just give whatever, he would cook food, he would make so much, and he just didn't know, like that part. So see, like knowing when you're going to eat next and all of that stuff, that's all stuff, relearning all of that stuff, and relearning how you think about food, and how you think, and it goes how you think about money, and how you think about food, and how you think about your transportation and car, and how you get
survival stuff, right?
Yeah, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? That goes perfectly with those chakras, by the way, the Maslow hierarchy of needs, when we talk about it, because we have survival. And I always equate that to the root chakra, the survival needs. And like, it's all about that. And when we're out of our survival needs and we're so dysregulated, we get into that zone of like, oh gosh, like scarcity. Right? So, oh gosh, this is such a great conversation.
So many different spokes to follow, and, you know, lots of great things for us to consider. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Do you have the link, by the way, to your book on hand?
I am snagging it right this second because it's in my search history. I'll plunk it here in the chat.
Yeah, put it in the chat. Please, 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 please get Safrianna's book, Bumblebees and White Balloons. It's absolutely amazing. Such a great read. it was such a great read, and I did laugh, I did cry, I did all the things with that book, and it's so good.
Thank
It's
you.
just so good.
It
And I
is
love,
definitely, I'm proud of it. I feel very proud of it as my
yeah,
debut novel.
yeah,
Oh, well, it popped that up that way, but
yeah. Let
yes.
me. I'll actually. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna see if I can grab
Oh, I
that.
might have the tiny URL as well, actually. But yeah, the best way to find it is just to search for bumblebees and white
And
balloons
white
book.
balloons.
If
Okay.
you just if you don't search book, you're gonna get a lot of party decorations, I've discovered. But add book and it comes
Yeah.
right up.
Bumblebees and White Balloons book, and that's how it looks like right here. So good, so good, so
Thank
good.
you. I really
Yes.
appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Safrianna. I appreciate it. Please go get Bumblebees and White Balloons. That's amazing. And please visit Safrianna.com and livinglunas.com as well.
Thank you. Yes, just be aware that if you're listening to this anytime near February 16th, we are under construction on livinglunas.com, but it's going to be awesome.
Okay. All right.
Thank you so much, Sophia.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. And please have a great day and make sure to manifest with your chakras today. Have a great day, you guys. Bye.